Weeks ago, the Child and Youth Advocate raised the alarm about chronic absenteeism in the province's schools. In her report, Jackie Lake Kavanagh says she was deeply troubled by the high number of children who were disappearing off the radar. On yesterday's Open Line, we had 3 different callers with concerns about a child in their family who no longer regularly attends school. Here's a short montage of those calls.
My daughter has not been technically in school since the middle of grade 5. So that would leave her at about 10 years old when this all happened. And she's now 17, so would be in her graduating year. In those 7 years, we have done pretty much everything that anybody would think. She has severe anxiety. She had always had a little bit of anxiety, but it obviously got worse. Basically, she would have a panic attack. And so, rapid heartbeat, couldn't breathe, dizzy, nauseated, just fight or flight response. The highest form of anxiety is panic, and that is what she would go through. We have been through everything, psychiatrists, psychologists. Can you picture an 11-year-old going through this? Adults sometimes brings them to their knees. She has lost so much.
I got a little problem with a kid not going to school. She got out when she was 11 years old. She missed 126 days in school. Last year got 6, and this year she might have got 5. I'm after going through trial offer, District 5, and Advocate for Youth Children in St. John's. She got a letter from the counsellors that there was no problem for her to go to school. There was no issues. And she got one from the doctor. There was no issues. He didn't see any problem. But I'm after going through all the ropes, and it seems like there's nobody moving. I'm just going swinging around back to a circle. And it seems like there's no pressure. The letter's been signed out to the mother, and she's ignoring them. I mean, she been put on from grade 4 to grade 5 to grade 6 to grade 7. Her mother is not responsible, and there's nobody pushing it.
I have a very precious person in my life being denied an education. This child is very young. It started from kindergarten. The child has severe anxiety. The person in my family, I don't want to say any names or who the person is, because if I do, out there people will know. I just want you to know, and maybe authorities or school boards or somebody hear me. But it goes like this. This child is put on the back burner. The child has severe anxiety. There's schools, the teachers, principals, doctors at the Janeway child psychologists, all these people are involved in this person's life, and they're saying, do it this way to the parents, do it this way, this way, this way. This child has been going to school for 4 or 5 years. Nothing is changing. Do it this way. This is how you get the child to school. This child hasn't been in school since the middle of October. Nobody's calling to see if this child is okay. There's nobody doing anything. And the child actually has, autism is in a spectrum, but these parents have done everything that you could possibly do. They carried him in blankets, put him in the car, put him in the car seat, put the child lock on the car so he wouldn't get out. And this child is fine. But when you mention school, anything to do with school, please don't send me there. Please don't let me go.
Those were 3 callers to Open Line yesterday, each with their own story of a child in the family who is no longer attending school. Dr. Janine Hubbard is a clinical child psychologist who regularly sees children with similar issues. She joins me live in studio. Good morning, Dr. Hubbard.
Good morning.
When you heard that pack of 3 different calls, what did you think?
It's heartbreaking to hear, and unfortunately it's something I hear on a really regular basis. I was reflecting when I got the call to come in this morning. Fully half of the clients I saw yesterday are struggling to attend school because of anxiety and mental health issues.
Why is school such a difficult place for people suffering with anxiety?
There's a number of reasons, and this is why it's always really tricky to figure out. It could be some separation anxiety, so again, not wanting to be away from the comforts of home or parent support. It could be that there are some social anxiety, which is magnified in a school environment, fear of being judged, fear of the reactions of others. It could be that somebody has experienced panic, and once you've experienced a panic attack in a particular environment, that often then spreads so that that you generalize all of your fears going, well, if I go back to that situation, it's going to happen again. Could be kids with learning issues, could be kids where they're struggling socially, behaviorally, like I say, in terms of their learning needs. School is such a huge part of a child's life that when it becomes a fearful place, it really does become a major challenge for families and schools.
And every case is different. That's what makes it
Absolutely.
so complicated. You know, you're trained, specialized in child psychology, and yet we try to put the onus on people in schools, teachers and administrators who simply don't have the type of training. What's the best way to manage children who have anxiety issues at one severity or another?
Best piece of advice that I can leave with people with this morning is if you have a child who's presenting with resistance to going to school, do something about it early. Whether it's talking to the classroom teacher, talking to the guidance counselor, working with admin, talking to your family doctor, or looking at some more detailed counseling supports, do not let it just ride, because what we know is it becomes a very slippery slope. Kids stay off for a day or two and suddenly it's the rest of the week, and suddenly it's every Monday that's challenging, or it's every time there's been a holiday and you get that big resistance. That slippery slope of school avoidance is so powerful, because one of the things we know about anxiety is the more we avoid something that we're afraid of, the bigger the fear becomes. So the more we confront it early on, and that's incredibly hard for parents, because it's pushing your child who's yelling and screaming and crying and clearly in really visible distress. And it feels counterintuitive to every parenting instinct to say, no, you got this. I'll walk you to the school door. And then we got people at school who are going to make sure that we get you in the building.
Is it generally manageable? And I know there's not one size fits all here, but when there's early intervention, is it generally manageable that a child with any anxiety disorder is able to attend school and overcome?
I wish that was the case. There are certainly severe cases where we know that that's not the case. And then we do need to look at alternate schooling arrangements, whether it's the online or distance education, whether it's district school, whether it's some kind of alternate schooling opportunity. There are always going to be some kids who have to go that route. However, in the vast majority of cases, especially if we can intervene early, absolutely those supports are there. But parents do need to reach out and connect with the school and form a partnership, because we know that's the most effective way to treat this is a combination of medical team if they're necessary, and our counseling team, school and home all working in partnership together.
What's the risk of being chronically absent from school, even if it's because of your anxiety?
We know that at least 20% of kids and teenagers experience a significant level of anxiety at some point during that time period. And again, there are some people who can do it and work through it. So we need to look at the additional risk factors. If you've got anxiety in your family, definitely deal with it early. If you, sometimes you're able to identify what's going on. Maybe it's bullying, maybe it is learning issues, maybe there's an undiagnosed learning disability, trying to address some of the underlying issues early on. And it's really teasing apart and figuring out what's happening.
Are the schools equipped to deal with this period?
They're working really hard. And can I tell you, I have had such supportive schools where they often struggle is they don't realize there's a problem, because what's happening is they just get the call that says, well, Sally's sick. And suddenly Sally's been out sick for 2 weeks. And Sally was legitimately sick at home. She's got a bad belly. She's worried she's going to throw up. She's, all of these things are happening every morning. And it's not until things have progressed that people kind of put the clues together and go, oh, well, no, maybe it's not actually, a physical illness. Maybe we're dealing with some other health issues.
So that's just a matter of asking the right questions.
Yep.
Are the numbers growing? You say some 10 to 20% will develop some sort of anxiety or resistance to one stimuli or another. Are those numbers changing?
We feel like they're changing. And again, there's many theories as to why that's happening. We don't have a really good explanation. Some of it is definitely we're understanding it better and identifying it earlier. And some of it is, again, whether it's combination of societal pressures, of the social media pressures, like there's a lot of multifaceted things that are going into causing this surge. But we're working awfully hard to try to address it.
Yeah, we're just using more medically or clinically appropriate terms these days. Well, a kid who once was simply crooked and didn't like school maybe now actually has an anxiety disorder.
And that's actually I'm glad you raised that as a point. Most people think of anxiety as the tears and the crying and the bad belly. We also see anxiety present as oppositional and resistance, as opposed to don't make me do it and I cry. It's no, I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. That can be anxiety coming out as a form of control, as a form of resistance. So if it's a really important thing for, again, people to be looking at and trying to better understand what's causing that reaction.
So if the child doesn't want to go to school, but then all of a sudden doesn't want to go to piano lessons, doesn't want to go to the birthday party, then we might be some red flags that are really evident.
Absolutely.
Dr. Hubbard, it's always great to see you. Thanks for making time.
Thanks so much.